Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Building AI Solutions with Reveal. Your host, as usual, Jason Barris, Senior VP here at Infragistics. Thank you for joining us today. We have a very long webinar. It's probably going to near an hour, maybe. It's a lot of stuff to show. I will try to be as brief as possible, but sometimes I can't help it. It's mostly demos. I'm going to show a few slides, and then we will get into the demo, and then we'll wrap this thing up. But today's agenda is really about AI, how you can use AI, and how you can use the document object model that we ship with Reveal for the AI. Make sure you refer to last month's webinar on the DOM to refresh, but I'm going to do a little bit of refresher today on this as well. We'll do most of our time in demo, then we'll wrap it up. Recording and slides will be available after the webinar. We will email you tomorrow. Please use the questions and chat for all of your questions during the webinar. If you say to hosts and panelists or to all, well, everyone will get the question and the answer. So what is the Reveal DOM? We did this in detail last month, but these are libraries that we have on GitHub that allow you a view into the Reveal dashboard as a document object model. We have a TypeScript flavor and we have a C# .NET Core flavor. And essentially, they are what enables AI, because once you have the document object, you can parse it, you can pull things out, you can do stuff to it, you can feed it into an AI engine, and then you can ask questions about those dashboards. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And once you ask those questions, what do? You get a result, and then you want to create the visualization. So doing something like adding a pie chart like this code is showing here, or a bar or a column. I'm going to refresh your memory on all of this in some of my examples, but ultimately the DOM ends up being the cornerstone of looking at AI, how you can implement AI and how we're implementing AI for Reveal. So you've got this dashboard object. It has functions off of it like load, save, etc. Then you have visualizations collections, you have data sources collections. Visualizations have fields, labels, aggregates, etc., filters. And then data sources have the data source item, and all of the stuff that you need to actually create the RDash. Again, this is all metadata. So what's in the RDash, or the dashboard file, is metadata and the schema information required to actually go to the database, get what Reveal needs to render the visualization and the dashboard. So when we think about AI, the big question I have for all of you is your data ready for AI? Because AI, or Reveal, cannot solve your data problems. AI expects business-friendly terms. It expects logical schemas. It expects relationships, because you're training an artificial intelligence on something that you're asking your users to do natural language questions on, or you're asking an AI to do augmented analytics on those schemas. So the only way that the AI can be successful is if there's meaningful names. If there's not meaningful names, then you need something like a data catalog or some level of business context. Now in Reveal, we are going to ship a sort of pseudo data catalog business context JSON that allows you to describe your schemas, your fields, etc. But at the end of the day, the biggest challenge for organizations is that step one, their data wasn't even ready for BI. Now that it's ready for BI, is it ready for AI? So you really have to think about this and make sure that you're spending your time to ensure that your views, tables, etc. are AI ready. And when we think about things like, I'm asking a question of a database. So I'm looking at schema, I'm looking at what the fields are, etc. How am I going to return that data? So AI, or Reveal, is going to return something based on your fields, right? I have a fields list, I have a schema, I have relationships. We're going to determine what are the best X and Y axis labels based on the question, based on that schema. We're going to use the DOM to create a visualization, and then we're going to return it. So if you have a lot of functions, a lot of stored procedures, you might be thinking about, well, how is my user actually ever going to be able to ask a question on the stored procedure because it's so specific. It needs specific parameters. Like some of these stored procs I've seen from customers have like 15, 20 parameters. There's a ton of code that goes into them. So again, AI is all about having data that is in a format, view, etc. for natural language questions. So please think about that as you are waiting for Reveal to ship AI. Today, we're going to look at using RAG for data retrieval and, prompting and things like that. This is a screenshot that I grabbed off the internet from a workflow using Microsoft Azure Cognitive Search. So the cool thing is there's multiple ways to do AI. You can do just one-shot prompting. You can do multi-shot. You can do agentic where you have workflows. You can just do RAG using things like a vector database and then do search on top of that. We're going to do a couple techniques today, all super simple, high level. This isn't a how-to. It's more like this is what your outcomes can look like. But you can see that using something very robust, like in this diagram, using Azure with OpenAI, there's all the tools available for you based on your cloud provider. So we have customers using AWS, using Azure, they're using Oracle. Another one came up using some AI backend I haven't quite heard of yet, but they're popping up all the time. And then there's vector databases all over the place. We're not going to dictate what you use. What we're going to be able to do is say, hey, we've tested it with these backends, and we know that with Reveal, you'll get the best results doing this. However, most of my demos today are all about you just implementing AI yourself. So if you have, if you're already doing AI and you want to start integrating some Reveal capabilities, great, go to town. That's what today's demos are all about. So without further ado, let me jump right into the demo and we'll kick this off. The first thing I want to do is kind of go back to the basics to help you understand how all of this is possible. So when we think about Reveal and AI, there is already this enablement in the product that lets you go crazy with AI today. You don't have to wait for what is Reveal going to release in terms of AI features if you don't want. Of course, as I highlighted, we will be releasing specific AI features and then more and more over time. Every application, of course, has to be AI first moving forward. But let's take a look at how we do enable this. And this comes down to the document object model library. We've talked about this before. We did a webinar on this last month. And the DOM is really what enables you to generate visualizations and dashboards on the fly. You don't need the Reveal UI. You just need a little bit of creativity and a little bit of code to make this happen. So for example, this pie chart that I just created, what did I actually do there? Well, we created this all using code. I said, create a new R- document. I gave it a specific data source. I gave it the fields that I want to use. And then I told it to create a pie chart. I told the Reveal SDK DOM TypeScript to generate this dashboard. And then I loaded that into a Reveal view. What did we do? We create a document. In that document, we add the new visualization. So this is the JSON chart visualization. And then I am going to render that on my form. If I look at something a little bit richer, here we have a pie chart, a bar chart, and a data grid. Again, if I look at the code here, it's the same exact thing. We are using the TypeScript DOM. So remember, the DOM comes in two flavors, TypeScript and C#. So you can use this in .NET Core, or you can use it on the client, depending on the flavor of your language preference. And then here I'm doing the same thing. I'm creating this JSON data source item with these specific fields. But in this case, I'm not just doing a pie chart. I'm going to do a bar chart, and I'm going to do a grid visualization. The charts follow a very similar pattern. You have a set label and you have a set value for your Y and X axis. And then a grid, of course, what you're doing is you're setting the column names. And then I'm just saying document, okay, here's the visualizations that you need. JSON chart 2, and JSON grid, these three guys here. And then I'm going to return that document. What am I returning? Well, I'm actually going to return it to the Reveal View object so it renders. Now, in the last webinar, I kind of highlighted how this might work manually. So in this case, I'm running a .NET Core server. It could be a Node, Java, it doesn't really matter. But essentially, I've created a list of tables, and out of those tables, I'm listing all of the fields that are available. All of this is custom code. There's nothing here that's part of Reveal. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to create a new chart based on some selection. So let's grab country, let's grab total orders, and then I'm going to generate this chart. This is basically what's happening in those previous samples. So if we look at our code and we scroll down a bit past all of my CSS stuff, what we're going to see is a little bit different code because I'm fetching my tables from the server. So this is, pulling data from a server API. I'm asking that the server give me all of the columns for that specific table name. And then what am I doing? I'm going to list out those columns inside of my list, which is that left-hand menu. And because my SQL data sources are different than my Reveal data sources, I did some mapping on the server, but on the client here, I'm actually saying, hey, based on that type, give me an image. So that's that image that will show up on my list next to the field name. So I wanted to kind of look like Reveal. So I just kind of took those same images very easily. And then as I do my drag and drop, this is all my drag and drop code. We'll scroll all the way down to my button generate. And what this is going to do is exactly what we saw in the previous two samples is I have like a create method. What am I going to tell it to create? Well, here's the label field. Here are the values. And in that create method, I've got my grid. Let's do the same thing. We're going to set those columns. So all of my columns show up. And then down here, I've got my column chart. So I'm going to create a new column chart visualization. And then I'm going to add both of those to my document and then do the same thing we saw earlier. The only difference in this sample is I have this option to do a combo chart. So I have total orders. So let's grab total sales and total orders. Now, if I generate this, it'll actually create a different type of chart. So if we look at that code, it's just down here. I'm doing a little bit different. Instead of a bar chart, column chart, pie chart, I'm doing a combo chart visualization, and I am telling the DOM API what my chart 1 and my chart 2 are, and then I'm rendering that on the screen. And again, all of this can be done client or server. We're going to see how this looks on the server as well in a bit. But what this culminates to in terms of our AI story is my point that you can do anything to create a Reveal visualization or dashboard without Reveal. Everything can be done in code, which means you have the power to do anything you want with AI. If you're a customer, you've seen me do this demo many, many times. I have my visualization catalog and I have my list of visualizations and I have this plus sign. I click it and I'm dynamically generating a dashboard based on those visualizations. Then I can save it. And I know many of you are doing this now, but all of this is custom code using the DOM. So when we look at where the magic is here, if I scroll down here, continue to generate dashboard, all we're doing is a little bit of tracking of what plus sign I hit. And then ultimately I am loading whatever values or IDs happen to be in that array out to the dashboard viewer. So I know you can, do drag and drop with this. You can, remove items. You can kind of do whatever you want. Everything's available from an API in JavaScript. But this ultimately, when we look at how are we going to enable this sort of stuff in the AI, it's through the DOM and just through getting things like, what is the title of my visualization? What's the ID of my visualization? What's the description? And whatever else you might need to do searches on that. So what this is ultimately doing is it's getting a chunk of JSON that I use to populate that source doc, that array. So if I right click and inspect this and excuse all of these other things. But let's just drill into what's getting rendered here. You're going to see dashboard file name, dashboard title, my visualization, chart type, the viz ID, and the viz title. This is the only information that I need to create a chart. And in fact, I don't need all of that. I just need the dashboard file name and I need the visualization ID. So I need this GUID and I need the file. So I want to say, hey, from this file, pull out this visualization and then stick it in another visualization, import that into another visualization. So when we talk about techniques like RAG, retrieval augmented generation, I can just have a bunch of these IDs and dashboard file names and maybe some metadata, descriptions, whatever, do natural language search and bang, I can pull that back in, which if I go to my AI generated chart, let's go ahead, we'll grab the same table here. I listed all of my fields and let's do country and maybe title, or we'll do title, not title of courtesy, and we'll do total orders and I'll generate these charts. So what is this doing? It's going off to the AI. The AI is determining what this question of, hey, I have a title, I have a country, I have these total orders. Can you give me what you think is the best result for this question? And it just says, yeah, here, why don't you get this y-axis value and this x-axis value, and then we'll generate this dashboard for you. So this was all completely generated using the server-side DOM with AI. So my prompt was basically like, hey, you've got these fields, and here's this schema. What kind of visualizations can I create? So then what is that actually doing? So if we go to my server here, I've got this create dashboards with charts function. And what is create dashboards with charts doing? Well, it's doing everything that you just saw on the TypeScript DOM on the client, except I'm doing this in the C# SDK DOM on the server. So I'm giving it a Microsoft SQL Server data source because that's where all of my data is housed. And I want to create a Northwind Cloud subtitle ID. So now I have this data source. Then what's next? Well, in this function, I'm actually passing in an array of columns that I pulled in from a SQL statement. So I have all of my columns and I'm creating these new fields for reveal, like a text field, a date field, a time field, a number field. So those are those reveal field types. Then what's next? Well, I need to create a data source item, and that data source item is going to be the table name that was selected. So employee details extended. And then in my chart details here, this is an array that came back from the caller who actually called this function. And I'm saying, well, let's loop through these guys. Let's get whatever the heck these happen to be. And let's go ahead and create those visualizations in the DOM. So if I set a breakpoint here, and let's go back to our page here, I'm going to click Generate Charts again. And what we'll do is we'll switch over now to my Query Builder app, and we'll hit this breakpoint. So now the breakpoint's hit. What is my chart details? So chart details here, I have a chart type, and this is giving me the description, etc. If I scroll back up here, I've got my list of chart details that have come in. You can see here, this is just my chart details list. It says I've got 10 chart details. So let's view this. And based on my prompt, it said, hey, you've got a bar chart, should be title, and then total orders, country, total orders, title, country, total orders with the description. And all of this was handled through an API. Wow, what was that API? So let's go back to our code here and let's pop over to the code view. And I'm going to scroll down. And here I get my columns again. Let's continue to scroll down. And you'll see here, I've got a function called tables, columns, charts. And I'm actually doing a post of whatever the heck people clicked in the list. So if I go back to this, let's do a Control F. We'll find this guy. Here's table, column, charts. So it's got one thing that it's supposed to do. And I've already set up my kernel and all this other stuff. Get chart options to async. We go to that definition. and you can see this is my prompt. So my prompt is basically looking at the schema and the data types, generate a chart type, x-axis, y-axis, blah, 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 gave it some priorities. And the magic here was that I continued to refine this over testing. So this prompt, and technically this could be my system prompt. So this system prompt just gets sent every single time. And then the user prompt is very basic. I'm just like, hey, here's the columns that were selected, do what you got to do. But that's how easy it is using that document object model to do the same thing that we just did in TypeScript, but although I am doing this now in C#. So if I go back to my tables, columns, charts, whoops. So we already went there and we've highlighted this, and we'll go down to our generate dashboard charts here. Let's scroll down a bit. Here we are. And let's go to this definition, and I'll scroll down again, and then you'll be able to see here, obviously my breakpoint's still here, but based on the type of chart that's being recommended, I'm literally just creating that chart and doing exactly what we're doing. We're returning a document, or we're creating that document, then we're going to return that document down to the caller. So super easy. Let me undo my breakpoint there, and we'll go back to our browser, and we'll go back to our dashboard, and we get basically something similar. Now, the interesting thing is, obviously this is generative AI, could be getting different visualizations every time you run this, because the combinations will be different generated from the server. And finally, I pulled all of these ideas together in a little bit of a richer example of using different AI features. So in fact, if I look at a simple API that I'm using, I'm going to click try it out. And I'm just going to say, what is the order count by year? And we'll execute this. And this goes off, and it's generating a bunch of stuff for me. It's creating a query, and then it's returning back the SQL Server or the T-SQL. It's giving me the JSON back. It's telling me what type of chart type I should be using, and it's doing a summary. So if I look at my code, here's my results. This is the one I was using. It's a slightly different prompt. So I'm saying using the fields and blah, blah, blah from the schema. Specifically follow these rules, because very quickly your AI will go off the rails trying to generate SQL. And ultimately, I am calling several different functions. I'm saying get data, convert my data table to a list, get the different chart types that are possible with this information, and then get the data insight. So slightly different code, returning more information, and it just makes for sort of a more interesting demo. So here, if I say, what's the average order value by year, it's going to go off, execute that query, and we should see here the return of my SQL statement, my JSON data, and my dashboard. And let's see something else. What product categories have the highest revenue? What I did here is, instead of typing in all these questions every single time, I went and I said, hey, AI, based on the schema of my database, can you give me 30 questions? And then I just pump those into the code for this. So these are all not like pre-programmed. They're all here just so I don't have to type all of them in. So here, what is the total invoice amount for each customer in the UK? And of course, the business context is important. Northwind's very well structured. It does a good job of giving the right answers based on the friendly field names. When you start using AI with your data, the number one challenge, as mentioned, is your data in the right place for AI? So let's take a look at that. So I am going to highlight a couple things now. When I started to do this webinar, I was going to build a simple chat UI with just, an Angular React. And then I found that Microsoft had just released Chat UI app, which is actually really slick. So I installed this template, and essentially what the template does is, if I open up a new Visual Studio 2022 instance, I'll create a new project. It gives you an AI template, AI chat app. We'll just call this Chat App 1. and let's do .NET 9. I'm going to use the OpenAI platform, or I could use GitHub models. So if we just select GitHub models, I'll show you what that looks like. And then it creates an on-disk vector store. So I'll go ahead and hit create. So now I have this app, and basically what it's saying is in your user secrets, add a GitHub model token. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to go and manage my user secrets. I'm going to paste this guy in, and I need a token. How do I get a token? Well, actually, let me close that guy down. Let's go back to here, and let's go take a look at the GitHub Marketplace. The GitHub Marketplace now is a playground for models. So I'm going to select OpenAI GPT-4, and you can test this guy out. You can experiment with these models. You can pick any model that you might, want to test with. So if you're using DeepSeek, or you want to see how 5.4 compares to DeepSeek or O1, etc., there is a model playground. So here I'll select OpenAI GPT-4o, and here I can just ask questions and it will go ahead and start answering them. But I want to use this model. So let's go ahead and click Use Model. There's this dialog that pops up. It says get a developer key. I'm going to generate a new token, and we're going to call this webinar demo, and we don't need a description. Let it expire. All my public repositories, generate token. I'm going to generate my token. I'm going to copy this guy, and I'm going to minimize this, and let's just paste this right into here. Now, just like that, I'm using a free GitHub model developer key for 30 days, and it has some restrictions in terms of how often you can use it, but that's slick. That is all I need to do to get this app running. What the app does is, if we look in www.root, there's a data folder, and it includes some PDFs. And what it's doing is it's reading any PDF in that data folder, and it's creating a vector store. So you don't have to do any vectorization or anything like that. It does it all for you. So now using RAG, so what that does is the RAG or the PDF gets pulled into the vector store, which generates the numeric values that will allow me to do natural language search, and it'll find the closest match based on the cosine of that data in the vector database, and it'll return results. So for example, it has two PDFs here, this emergency survival kit with a bunch of stuff here like signal mirror and whistle. Like, what is this? Emergency communication. So it's now allowing me to ask questions. So can you describe the best practice for emergency communication? And I'll hit enter, and I'm off to the races. And there you go. It pulled out that information. And if I click the link here, it highlighted in the PDF where this should be. So pretty amazing. I'm going to leave this chat app just for a second. And for the guys on the call that aren't doing .NET and don't want to get mucked up in the .NET ecosystem, they want to do something else. Well, you can do the same thing with local models. So here, for example, I installed OpenWebUI on my machine, and I downloaded the Gemma 3 model. So I've got Gemma 3 Llama, and what I did is I trained it with some reveal data, right? So I have this new model here with, I call it reveal data RAG. So if I go to my workspaces, click edit on my reveal data RAG, I'm saying, hey, you're a data analyst. Please give me the structured JSON for the visualizations that's requested. And this should look familiar to you because this is the format that I showed you in the dashboard builder. So I added some knowledge to this. And what was that knowledge? Well, that knowledge is a collection of reveal dashboards. So basically, I have a bunch of viz IDs, GUIDs, etc. So the exact same thing I do to build out my dashboard builder, I trained the AI to do. So here, if I do the same thing, let's ask a question. Can you show me the visualization for market rents? Question mark. And there it goes. It returns exactly what I expected. So here's my market rents. Here's my rents by unit type. And here is the reference. It's saying, hey, this is 86.53% relevant. And if we scroll down, we'll see more stuff, 81% relevant, etc. But what is it doing? It's actually looking at the description, the title, whatever information it has to answer these questions. So it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be pretty close. So here's the average stay by date. Let's copy this and let's just ask it, what is the average stay by date? And we'll see if it returns a visualization. So there you go. Same concept. So what is your job? Your job now is to take this and create a visualization from it, which is exactly what I did to build on my chat app. So I created a new chat app using the same Blazor template, which I just love. It's great. It does all the work for me. I'm going to go ahead and stop this guy because I don't need it anymore. But essentially, there is this ingestion service, and it ingests whatever PDFs happen to be in the data folder and then allows you to ask questions on it. So what did I do? Well, I modified this a little bit, and we don't need this guy anymore, and we don't need this guy anymore. I am going to just use my Reveal chat application. We'll maximize this guy. So I have a file called dashboardlist.pdf. What's in dashboardlist.pdf? It is the same thing that you saw in my Ollama app. So I installed Ollama, I installed that Gemma 3 model, and I trained it with this data. So it's, again, the chart type, the file name, the description, but the important thing here is the GUID and the dashboard file name in order to create a dashboard. So this .NET template, highlighted this earlier, but all you need to do is just install the extensions AI templates and you'll get everything that you see here. But I went ahead, I generated this list. How did I generate it? I just created an API in my app that generates the JSON and I turned it into PDF. Is that what you're going to do in real life? No, because it's a pain in the neck. You're going to modify the ingestion service to go ahead and just read in the JSON. But I was lazy and I wanted to get this done. But needless to say, this is what is in my vector store. So I also modified some of the pages here. So I've got this chat.razor page. And I said, hey, you're an assistant that is going to answer questions about the information you retrieve. Do not answer questions about anything else. Use a markdown, use the search file, blah, blah, blah. Always return the JSON structure for the question if you can find it. And why is that? Because I need that JSON structure to build a visualization. So all I want is that. And then I modified this a little bit more. If we scroll up a bit, I added one of our Blazor tab components, and I've got some markdown to go get the data insights and some other things. So I just added a few delighters here. So let's go ahead and run this. And I'm going to do the same thing, basically, that we did in the Ollama one, but you're going to see that this behaves a little bit different because I've modified it. So here, let's do show orders by year. What this is doing is it's searching my vector database, and it's returning the structured JSON exactly as I asked it for this visualization. And then it's generating this chart using the DOM, using the document object model, because all it needed was this. And I'm also getting some data insights. And I also pulled back all of the underlying data that is used to make up this dashboard. That's, you don't really need that, but I thought it was cool. If we can do it, why not? So let's go ahead and click dashboards list 01.pdf. You can see it highlighted exactly the data that we're looking at. And so we can do something from a different dashboard like banking. And here there's something about balance remaining when account closed. So I'm just going to say, what is the balance remaining? And there's a few things I didn't do in this sample. So for example, I did not account for like multiple visualizations getting returned, which very well could happen, I'm always expecting a single visualization back. But if I go to my dashboard, here's my leaving balance by referrals type, and boom, it just kind of shows up. Again, I have some data insights and my underlying data. The APIs that will be available to you in the Reveal product when we ship AI are not available today. So all of this is code. I'm just doing everything in code, and it's easy. It's based on the DOM samples that I've done in the past, and it makes life pretty cool because I can start doing AI on my own without waiting for anyone. So if we scroll down here, what are units produced? Let's see if that will actually give us that nice tree map. What are units produced? And this is using the manufacturing dashboard. And it's actually going to return a spline area chart. So it picked up a different visualization than I expected. But bottom line, the amount of work to do this was less than a day. Most of my changes here to the chat UI were a courtesy of Claude helping me rearrange the Blazor CSS. I implemented some of the Infragistics stuff, and I was good to go. But ultimately, I am calling APIs that I wrote to generate all of this AI stuff on the data insights. And then, of course, I am generating single visualizations just using the Reveal APIs that are available to me. So all of the same exact code. And what I do here is if I scroll back up, let me see. What's going to happen is when I get that JSON structure, I'm going to automatically attempt to load that dashboard. So I have here nope, wrong one. Let me scroll back down. Where am I doing my, right here. So I am invoking a JavaScript function called load reveal view. So I've got the dashboard data. So that's the structured JSON that came back. And I call load reveal view. What do I want to load? I want to load two reveal views, my dashboard, and then my underlying data. And I pass it this data. So if I look at reveal.js 01, you'll see I've got load reveal view. I'm passing in my view, and there's my dashboard data. Well, what is actually in my dashboard data is, of course, the visualization title and the dashboard file name. So that's as easy as it is. Once I have that data, I can load the dashboard, load that single visualization into a reveal view, and I'm done. That's all I need to do, and then that visualization shows up. So super easy. But the problem with this application is that it's a lot of code. I had to spend a long time doing it. So what you expect is an easier on-ramp in terms of using your data with Reveal. So what we're planning on doing is, of course, conversational AI, augmented analytics, and we're going to make everything very agentic. So you can use these APIs however you'd like. But I want to continue to give you a sneak peek of where we are at today on the path to getting to where you can start playing with this yourself. So here, I've got my Reveal chat working. It's up and running again. And there's some different settings here. I can use a variety of different databases. We're pulling in schema and other things. I can do chain generation. So I will maybe ask for some data insights from this. But again, it's conversational AI. So what types of questions can I ask? What you would expect. What are sales by year? Question mark. Hit enter. We're going off to the Reveal server, which has all of the AI stuff in it. And we come back with a little bit of summary and, of course, our visualization. So very similar to what I did before. And there's a bunch more commands here, and it's much more complex. My samples are very basic because I'm just looking at XY axis. This is doing everything from filters, interactive filters, to data filters, etc. So I can say, what are the top 5 selling products in 1997. And of course, this is a richer question, which is a little bit more difficult to answer. And you can see I'm getting those top 5 selling products. It looks like there's a little more than top 5. So let's go into edit mode and see what this did. It created a data filter for quantity. It did top items 5. And my guess is that it didn't take the sum of quantity. It just took quantity from here. So if we dragged this, it would actually give us a slightly different result. This is giving us a little bit more. But again, that's why we're still testing. But the nice thing is all of this is full-blown reveal, and you'll be able to give feedback on these results as well. And when I talk about ours is a lot of code, what you end up with is everything's done purely through configuration. So if we look at what that configuration might look like, this is obviously open to change. I've got my credentials in a JSON file. I've got my business context, so you'll be able to add business context. I have my OpenAI or whatever it might be for you, Ollama, DeepSeek, Phi3, etc. Key, and then my data sources. And in this case, let me go ahead and allow this. If I look at my data sources, this is basically what you would be looking at for your change data source item stuff. I was using Northwind Cloud. I was using a couple tables. And so it was just using this information to do all of that work. I don't have to write a single line of code to get AI working in Reveal. And of course, all of this will be API available. So that means you can write agents and you can actually inject our AI into your AI. If you already have a chat experience, you can just use your existing chat experience, just plug Reveal in. So you'll have pretty nice capabilities there to make that happen. So with that, let's jump back to the slides and wrap this up. Okay, so that was a long demo and a lot of stuff I'm showing there. But my message to you is, Reveal, we're on a journey to have some really killer AI features. But along the way, you can start doing AI today, just like I'm doing. I'm using RAG, I'm using prompting, I'm generating SQL, I'm searching vector databases, I'm looking around finding models that work the best. That Ollama sample I showed using the Gemma 3, I can't believe how fast that runs. I mean, the answers are instantaneous and they're correct, right? Now, it doesn't mean they're going to be correct all the time. You have to tweak your prompts, tweak your system prompts, tweak your user prompts. That's where all the testing comes into play. But at the end of the day, you can build extremely robust AI solutions with Reveal today because you have the DOM. With the document object model, you can do anything you want. My samples, and I'll put the link in the chat for the dashboard builder, which is essentially generating that JSON structure, is all I was feeding into these AIs. And that's it. That's all the AI had. And it could load the dashboard, use the single visualization view to load up that visualization. And I was done. So as you can see, it is poll time. Please answer the poll that just popped up. We appreciate your answers. They go into all of our product planning and give us insight to where you are at with your digital transformation with or without BI. So my message to you, try Reveal today at revealbi.io. If you have any questions or you'd like to dig deeper, give us a call at sales or send us an email at sales@revealbi.io. And you can set up a meeting with us. We can go deeper into what Reveal can bring to your enterprise. And if you want to talk a little bit more about AI, that's great too. And of course, if you have any follow-up questions, my email is jasonb@infragistics.com. Feel free to email me with any questions you have. And again, sorry, this one went over longer than our usual webinars do, but there was a lot to talk about today and a lot to show. I want to thank everyone for joining us, and I'll stay online and answer any further questions, and we will see you at the next webinar. Thank you and have a great week.